Mindful 360 with another Yin Yoga class. So today we will be stretching out a little bit. Now what are we doing today? Hey everybody, it's Mariana here from Mindful 360, and today I'm bringing you another Yin Yoga class. This time we're going to be practicing a beautiful sequence that allows us to surrender into the calm that is within our core being. So oftentimes this inner peace, as we've heard so many people say, inner peace, so cool. But it is in fact there, as cliched as it is. However, often it is covered up by layers of busyness, of thoughts, of plans, of memories of the past, of projections to the future. So all these things kind of cover up this quiet that we carry around with us. So this is just a way of starting to strip away those layers of busyness and to try and connect with the quiet and the peace that we carry around in our hearts. Great. Okay, so for today's for the session today, you're going to need a couple of props, but really just normal homemade props, things that you use around around your home anyway. So 2 bed pillows. Usually to make a yoga bolster, we stuff one pillow into the other and you get like super pillow, okay, which doubles as your yoga bolster. However, for today's one, let's keep our pillows separate. So you can still use it as a double bolster when we come to those poses, but just keep them separate for now. Okay, if you have a yoga block, amazing, get that out. If you don't have a yoga block, see if you can find one of those really thick hardcover books. You know, the ones that you sort of surreptitiously leave on your table, or maybe put in the shelf in your in your front entrance or in your lounge to show everyone how smart you are. Yeah, those books. Okay, so grab one of those or grab a yoga block. As always, if you want to have a little bit of extra padding for yourself on hand, go for it. So either grabbing yourself a towel or a nice comfy blanket. Fantastic, I will see you on the mat. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so coming to lie down flat on your mat with your legs stretched out in front of you and your feet just flopping open, so your toes flopping away from each other. And your shoulders releasing towards the ground. And your arms just relaxed alongside your body. Perhaps with the backs of the hands resting on the mat or the floor, just to help open up those shoulders a little bit more. And starting with your attention at your toes, gently scanning your attention all the way up your body, just starting to notice any sensations that jump out at you. Perhaps noticing or pausing at the points of contact that your body is making with the mat, and noticing what it feels like where that part of the body is touching the mat. Maybe as you carry on moving your attention up your legs, into your torso, you might start to notice if there's any excess tension being held in your tummy, perhaps in your back or your hips, in your pelvis. And just invite that space to relax and to sink a little deeper towards the floor. Maybe scanning even further on up into the shoulders, imagining that the shoulders and the front of the chest are opening up as if the collarbones are spreading away from one another. Any excess tension in the shoulders, allow to melt out and drip off onto your mat. Allowing the solid earth that's holding you to absorb any extra stress and tension, and just to hold you where you are right now, keeping you steady and safe. Noticing where the head is resting on your mat. Noticing how heavy the head is. Maybe it's heavy with thoughts as well as with weight. And if you notice that those thoughts tend to carry you away today during the practice, just bringing your attention back to wherever we are. Perhaps bringing it back to the breath to ground you. Or bringing it back to where your body is making contact with the floor and grounding you there. It's perfectly normal for the attention to wander, for the mind to be distracted by sounds and thoughts, plans, memories. But just noticing when that happens and choosing to bring the attention back to right now in this present moment. And then gathering the attention and focusing the attention onto the breath. Observing the flow of air as it moves in and as it moves out. And again as it moves in and as it moves out. Observing with a curiosity and a gentle awareness without trying to change the breath or manipulate it or force it in any way. Just noticing the quality of the breath. Is it short or long? Deep or shallow? What is this breath like right now? What about this breath now? Knowing that at any time during the practice, you can always come back to your breath to anchor your attention and to steady the boat of your emotions and your thoughts. And talking of emotions and thoughts, perhaps shifting the attention to take in the thoughts and emotions that might be sweeping through your body and your mind right now. So perhaps imagining that your thoughts and emotions are like the weather or the climate. So what kind of weather might be happening in your body and your mind right now? Perhaps a still, quiet, sunny day. Maybe it's a bit windy. Things flying around everywhere. Perhaps it feels a bit stormy. Either pouring down with rain, or maybe just some dark clouds hovering in the sky. Knowing that whatever the weather is, just like the weather outside our bodies that comes and goes and passes, so the weather inside also comes and goes. And we can observe a storm or a sunny day that is happening inside of us without becoming the storm. And in the same way, we can observe our thoughts and our emotions without becoming those thoughts and emotions, without holding on to them, just letting them go just the same way that they've come. And now bringing our attention back onto the breath. So tonight's theme and intention is to calmly surrender to the quiet within our bodies. It may be a little bit tricky to find at times, but it's always there. We can only find it though by gently surrendering everything that we're holding on to, our thoughts, our emotions, our plans, our expectations. When we let those go, that's when we can return to that inner quiet. So now using the ocean breath, a deep intentional breath to help quiet the nervous system and create the sense of peacefulness in our bodies. If you've never done the ocean breath, it's very simple. as you breathe in, keep your mouth closed, but breathe in deeply through your nose and send the air down the back of the throat. As you breathe out again only through your nose, so keeping your mouth closed, but trying to send the air out through the back of the throat. So it's a similar sensation to when you breathe on a piece of glass or mirror. That sense of sending the air to tickle the back of the throat as it comes out, except doing it just in and out of the nose. So you might also know this as Ujjayi breath from other yoga practices. And of course, remembering that if a practice is uncomfortable for you, if a breath practice becomes uncomfortable or too intense, maybe taking a moment to see if you can just sit with that discomfort and settle into it. But if it's really overwhelming, then rather releasing the breath and bringing the attention back to something more tangible, like the hands and the knees or the feet and the floor. So both with breath practice and physical practice, always listening to your own body and breath first. So your guidance is much more important than my guidance. Mine is a suggestion. Yours is a need and a need to take care of yourself. On the next in-breath, lift the hands up so that they're pointing up to the sky. So as we breathe in, we raise the hands up to the sky. And as we breathe out, we let our hands fall gently to the ground behind our heads. So investigate how comfortable this is for your arms and your shoulders. So perhaps just testing where in this space fits your shoulders. On the next in-breath, bringing the hands back up to center so the fingertips gently reach up towards the ceiling. And on the exhale, letting the hands fall back down along your sides. Once again, inhale, lift the hands up. Exhale, let the hands fall down behind your head. Inhale, moving the hands up with the in-breath. Exhale, let the hands come back down along your sides. And now do a couple more of those in your own time. So moving with your inhale, exhale, and perhaps even experimenting with sweeping the arms a little bit slower or a little bit quicker. When you eventually stop, coming to rest with your hands alongside your body, and then getting ready to roll over onto your side. So when you're ready, roll over onto your side into fetal position. So knees bent, your arm can be, your lower arm can be resting in whatever position is comfortable underneath your head, or you might even want to take a pillow and put it under your head. Knees both bent in a way that is comfortable for you, and gaze is coming inwards as if we're kind of coming towards our knees. So we're really creating this cozy little cave between our legs, between our arms, covering and protecting the front of the body. So fetal pose is a very soothing pose. It's a pose that is associated with being in the safety of the mother's womb. Physically, we're actually protecting the front of the body, which is the most vulnerable part of the body. So we're evoking a sense of safety in ourselves. As we breathe in, feeling the ribs expand, and as you breathe out, allowing yourself to just settle into this pose a little bit more. So starting our practice with fetal pose, the beginning of a journey. And I'd like to invite you to think about how we interact with babies. When babies are learning, when we are holding babies, playing with babies, feeding them, how do we do so? In what way do we do that? Are we gentle? Are we rough? Do we strong arm them into eating their food, or do we gently coax them and play funny games? So see if you can bring this sense of gentle fun, this playfulness into your practice tonight. See if you can approach your own practice and your own body tonight with a sense of kindness and gentleness. Surrendering and accepting whatever arises with an attitude of, that's okay, it's okay. We're learning and we're here, we're doing our best. Getting ready to move into our next pose, we're going to stretch our legs away from us. And then keeping the lower arm on the floor, we're going to stretch it out away from us so that it's at shoulder height, but our fingertips are pointing away from us. We're then going to place the top hand perhaps above the hand on the arm on the floor, and then we're going to gently roll our chest onto the floor. So we're stretching out the back of the shoulder blade. So my left arm is on the floor. So I'm bringing my chest to rest over my left arm. In this way, it's stretching out the shoulder blade, it's stretching out the back of the shoulder. Your top arm, you might want to rest your hand in front of your forehead so you can rest your forehead on your hand. You might want to use it just to keep you gently propped up and protecting your shoulder joint. Feeling where the front of your body is now pressed against the floor, so maybe a set of different sensations to explore. We've been on our back this whole time. So what is it like to be on our front now? With every out breath, settling a little closer towards the floor. Finding stillness in the pose, and using the stillness in the pose as an anchor for our minds. So can we use the stillness of the pose to create some stillness in the mind? Perhaps constantly just bringing the thoughts back to focus on a particular sensation, a particular area, or maybe just on the breath. And then preparing to move out of this pose, pressing the top hand into the floor and gently pushing the chest up so that you can pull that left arm up. Coming into Sphinx pose, so both elbows on the floor, both forearms on the floor, with the elbows gently aligned underneath the shoulders, raising the chest and the gaze, and then threading the right hand underneath your left armpit, okay, or perhaps going the other way depending on which arm you started with. So taking the opposite arm and threading it underneath your armpit, and then lowering that shoulder once again to the floor. Perhaps noticing opening in the back of the scapula, the shoulder blade, the shoulder capsule. As always, taking care to protect your muscles, taking care to protect your joints. So how do we tell if a posture is right for us or not? So when you feel It's a little different from everyone, but the general rules, if you feel pain, like intense pain, nerve pain, sort of feeling almost a type of pain like something might snap, that is not a good pain. So if you feel that, that's a sign that you should back out. If something just feels a little bit uncomfortable, like the type of discomfort where you've been sitting on your leg and it's gone numb or it's gone dead and the feeling's starting to come back, so that kind of pins and needles, that is more just the sensation of the blood flooding back into the area. So it's horribly uncomfortable. I'm not saying you should force yourself to stay there, but that's more a sense of discomfort rather than acute pain. So whatever you feel, whatever intensity you come across, whatever sensation you come across, you can always pause, even just for a moment, just for a second. You can always pause just to notice what's happening and then choose how you're going to proceed. So there's so much power in that pause, in that split second that you just stop for a moment and you decide what you're going to do rather than react. Wow, isn't that amazing? And that we can take into our everyday lives as well. So pressing into the top hand to once again lift your chest up and come into Sphinx pose. Elbows underneath shoulders, hands pressed lightly onto the floor. Take a moment to open up the chest, maybe roll out the shoulders one at a time. And then grabbing one of your pillows. So you might want to use one, or you might want to use two. So really experiment. I'm just going to use one. And tuck your pillow underneath your ribs. So find sort of the bottom of the ribs, then tuck your pillow underneath your ribs. And this time we're going to thread both arms in opposite directions. So we're going to do them at the same time. Okay, so just like we did with the individual arms, but this time stretching the fingertips into opposite directions at the same time. Trying to keep your arms at shoulder level. So see if you can kind of shift your arms up, your elbows towards your chest, so that they're at shoulder level. And once you've found a position for your arms that feels comfortable, just letting the chest and the shoulders sink down to deepen the stretch between the shoulder blades. So we're pulling the shoulder blades apart from one another. You can rest your chin on your arms. And bring your attention onto your breath. And as you allow the deep tissues, the deep connective tissues like the fascia, to gently release, notice what it feels like to completely surrender to the pose. To put yourself into the pose in a safe way, and then just completely release any resistance. Release any expectations, release any thoughts about what it's supposed to look like. Because in the end, with our yoga practice, it's not about what it looks like, it's about what it feels like. And then getting ready to move out of this pose, slowly sliding the elbows away from each other. Coming once again into Sphinx pose to open up the chest, open up the front of the chest. Lovely. And last pose on our bellies. Well, no, it's actually second last pose on our bellies before we change. So just open up the chest a little bit more. Let's press our hands more firmly into the mat and lift our elbows up. So we're coming into more of a seal pose. So working gently with this, because this can be quite strong on our lower back. So perhaps bringing the hands wide, or maybe you want to bring the hands a little forward, just so that stretch in your lower back isn't too intense. Or perhaps you feel like a really, really good stretch and you want to push yourself quite high up. And then just let your head hang between your shoulders. So let your head hang down. And just let the weight of your head pull a gentle stretch on your upper back and your neck. And then lifting your head up once again. Maybe opening up the front of the throat. And then bringing the head down again. So it's like we're very slowly just nodding the head up and down. And as you do this, see if you can actually notice or feel each vertebra as it changes position, as it shifts its alignment, as it connects with the muscles on the vertebra below and above it to find a new position. And then bring your head to stillness, lower yourself all the way to the ground. Bring your hands to rest one on top of the other and rest your forehead onto your hands. Before we settle into this pose, just check in where your pillow is. So now we want the pillow to be a little bit more under the diaphragm, so supporting the diaphragm. So you might need to shift that pillow a little bit lower. So your diaphragm lies right underneath your ribs here. So I actually want to be lying with our pillow underneath our diaphragm. And then bringing your head back to rest on top of your hands. So this pose, called crocodile pose, is a beautiful pose to stimulate our diaphragm. So our diaphragm is the most important muscle when it comes to breathing. It really opens up our lungs and allows the air to fly in. But it can get a little bit tense and it can get a little bit lazy as well. So it's really good just to activate that diaphragm now and then. And this is a great pose to do that. Notice where you feel pressure in your abdomen and in the front of your body. And notice what's happening with your breathing and maybe with your ribs. With the movement of your ribs as you press into your pillow. So as our body presses into the floor and into the pillow, it almost agitates the diaphragm to condense a little bit more. And it also forces the ribs to open up a little bit more because we can't now expand our bellies anymore. So usually with the first step in diaphragmatic breathing is to expand our bellies to allow the diaphragm to flatten a little bit more and to create more space. But eventually with diaphragmatic breathing we want to be able to expand the rib cage. So to create a cylindrical opening and closing rather than just the belly pushing back and forth. Really just allowing yourself to, allowing your body to adapt to this new sense of pressure. And now lifting your head off your hands, pulling your pillow out from underneath your belly. Just pause for a moment to notice what that feels like. What it feels like to remove that sense of pressure pushing up against the belly. It might feel a little bit more relaxed, or it might feel a little bit of a release, like you have more space to move it. Oh, isn't that good? And then taking the left hand and stretching the left hand out once again at shoulder level. So this time we're stretching the arm out, not to the opposite side, but to the same side. So left arm stretches out at shoulder level. Bring your shoulder onto the ground and then roll over onto your left side. So we're opening the front of the shoulder this time. You might want to bend your top leg, so your right leg, and bring the sole of your right foot onto the ground. And use your top hand just to prop you up. So again, only moving as far up as is comfortable for your shoulder. So only moving up as far as gives you a bit of a stretch without creating pain. The left leg is still stretched out away from you. The fingertips of the left hand are all 5 gently resting on the floor. So the palm of the left hand is making contact with the floor. Maybe feeling a spiraling in the forearm as we open up the front of the chest. There might be intensity, so if you do find that intensity in the arm or the shoulder, again, tuning into what kind of intensity it is. What signal is it giving you? And what is it like if for a moment you just pause and you sit with that intensity? What is it like to offer that intensity some kindness? Maybe to move a little further away, to come out of the pose just a little bit so that rather than being uncomfortable, we actually just feel good. So how often in life do we do this? How often in life do we push ourselves to be better because we think we should be better, when actually where we are is just right? So sometimes these expectations of needing to be better are based on what we think other people think of us. So this time in your yoga practice, when all that matters is looking after yourself and making sure that you are okay, it's a good opportunity for us to tune in and to ask ourselves, what is it that matters to me? What is it that looks after me? Using your right hand pressing into the floor to balance you out, roll back onto your tummy. Slowly moving from pose to pose, bring that left arm in. Maybe rolling the shoulder out a little bit. And then this time stretching the right hand away from you. So fingertips slide away from you with all 5 fingers pressed onto the floor. Right shoulder drops towards the mat. Arm shoulder height. And then getting ready to roll over onto your right hand side. Let me change over so you can see what I'm doing. So again, right arm stretched away from you, and then rolling over into your right hand side, this time bending the left leg and bringing the sole of the left foot to rest on the floor behind your extended leg, just to help balance you out. So if you find this is a bit too much, you can keep that leg in front of you as well. So keeping that left foot in front of you. And as always, you can also use your props. So if you want to use your pillows to prop up your belly and to really show yourself a little bit of extra gentleness today, you are 100% more than welcome to. And I highly recommend making those kinds of wise choices for yourself. Again, just exploring what it's like to just settle into the pose. Explore what it's like to just be still. So it might be just absolutely heavenly after a busy day, but it can also be really tough when our brain is still spinning in circles, when our nervous system is hyper aroused and hyper activated. It can be quite challenging to just lie still. But do it anyway and see what it's like. And if it is hard or boring or frustrating, what is it like to just let it be hard or boring or frustrating? And then slowly rolling out of the pose, coming back onto your belly, moving very slowly and noticing the changing sensations as you do this. Bringing that right arm in, maybe giving it a little bit of movement, rolling out the shoulders. And then reaching once again for your pillow. Putting your pillow underneath your shoulders and then pressing into your forearms to lift your hips and bring yourself into a child's pose. So coming to a child's pose, stretch your hands away from you and rest your forehead onto the pillow. So really taking this opportunity to be as deliciously comforting to yourself as you want. So you could take one of your pillows, put it on your knees, and then your other pillow and put it on the floor. And then just completely relax into all that delicious cushiness. Or you can just use the one pillow to comfortably just hold your head, allowing your neck to relax and be supported, allowing tension in your shoulders to melt out. Noticing what sensations are arising in the spine. Perhaps starting with the neck. Just letting the tension flow gently over the spine. And as your attention moves from the top of the spine all the way down to the bottom of the spine, see if it can bring this trail of gentleness, kind of like magic. So as your attention moves down the spine, imagine that your spinal muscles are just releasing and relaxing. That the back of the body is melting away from the spine. Feeling the contact with the floor as it holds the body steady, reliable, always present, always here to keep us safe and grounded. And now with awareness, moving into an all fours position. So bringing our hands underneath our shoulders and our knees under our hips. And then walk the knees over to the left hand side of the mat. And then bring the right hip down onto the ground. So we've got our knees bent out in front of us. And then we're going to gently twist our shoulders and our chest so that we are facing towards the front of the mat. And here, before we bring ourselves down, perhaps if your hips are a little tight, you might want to double stack your pillows before eventually just walking your hands away from you and bringing your chest towards the ground. So we've put our bodies into this kind of twisted spinal shape. So we've got our knees facing out towards the left hand side, and we've got our chest and our shoulders facing the front edge of our mat. Perhaps bringing one hand to rest on top of the other, and then resting the forehead on the hands. So if this is a little bit intense on the knees or on the hips, you can also move your legs down a little bit, just straighten them out a little bit. So if you want a deeper spinal stretch, you bring your knees closer to your chest. But if you want, you can stretch your legs out a little bit, straighten them out a little bit before coming back to rest on top of your pillows. And as you settle into your pose, maybe you find this is a good opportunity to take 2 or 3 intentional breaths. So deeper breaths, maybe with a deep inhale, filling up the lungs, and then slowly elongating the out breath by letting just a thin breeze of air move out of the nose. You might even find that this is a good time for a sigh, so you could breathe in through the nose and just sigh it all out. So in this twisting pose, it's really good to stretch out the back muscles, to bring a little bit of mobility into the spine and into the hips. It's good for a little bit of detox. It squeezes our internal organs a little bit so that when we untwist, a whole lot of fresh blood with nutrients and oxygen and all those kinds of delicious things comes rushing back to our internal organs and to our cells and helps them to feel healthy and just delicious afterwards. And then pressing into the arms and the hands, lifting yourself up back into all fours position, and moving and walking your knees over to the right side of your mat. So we're going to do the same thing but on the opposite side. So walking your knees to the right side of your mat, bring your left hip down. Again, checking in with your knees where they need to be. Do you want them nice with a nice deep bend, or do you want your feet extended away from you? And then twisting your upper body so that your chest is facing the front edge of your mat, perhaps raising the gaze, elongating the spine, before slowly walking yourself down. And really taking it slow so that you can notice the different sensations and how the different body parts shift and move to create this new pose. Perhaps staying in your elbows, or perhaps bringing the one hand on top of the other to rest your forehead gently on this pillow. And as you settle into the quiet and into the stillness of the pose, choosing something that helps to focus your mind. So we'll be in this pose for another minute or so, and I'm going to be quiet for the whole minute. Maybe use it as time as an experiment to see, what does your mind do? What is it like to be quiet and still for a whole minute? Here we go. And as we come out of our quiet moment, slowly lifting ourselves up, gently pushing ourselves up into all fours position once again. Maybe doing a few cat-cows just to release the spine. So dropping the belly, lifting the head, and then reversing to curl the spine upwards and drop the head between the shoulders. And just do a couple more in your own time. Whatever feels good for the spine, so maybe even just moving from side to side. And then coming to a stop, finding your book or your block or whatever it is you're going to use to sit on, and then coming to a seated position on top of that item. Ta-da! Stretching your legs out in front of you, and then bringing your pillows underneath your knees. And as you move, notice how you move. Notice what moves first. Notice where your feet are touching the floor. Notice some new sensations. Notice if you're moving gently, or if you are maybe roughing it a little bit. So stretching your legs out in front of you with the knees resting on your little mountain of pillows here. Settling your sit bones or your bum onto your prop. And then letting your hands rest in your lap. Or if you want, slightly deeper, you can actually slide your hands underneath your knees or underneath your thighs. Letting your head drop and slowly rolling your head down or releasing your head. Maybe even releasing your shoulders towards your legs as you come to rest in a seated forward fold. So just checking in with the neck, that you're allowing it to stretch in a way that is safe and comfortable without forcing it down. So we're going towards the knees rather than trying to be in a competition to see if we can actually get to the knees. It's more like a suggestion. Taking a deep breath in through the nose and sighing it out through the mouth. Another breath in through the nose and sigh it out through the mouth. And one more, just because why not? Feeling the back of the body open and exhale everything out through the mouth before coming once again to stillness in this pose. Taking some time to be quiet and calm. And giving your body and your mind permission to make mistakes and permission to just be exactly as it is right now. Letting go of all the labels that we have given ourselves throughout the day, throughout the year. Letting go of any labels that other people give us. Just leaving that all by the door. We'll pick it up again soon enough, but for now, just be right here, exactly as you need to be. Knowing that the way you are right now is beautiful and perfect, and that just as you are now, you are deserving of all the love and goodness in the world. Just noticing where your mind is now. And if it's gone for a walk, inviting it to come on back. And then super, super slowly, rolling the head up as slowly as you can. Taking your time, there's no rush. Opening up the chest, the throat. Releasing the arms and the hands. And then lifting the knees as we separate our pillows and come into a wide-legged forward fold. So very similar to what we just did, except spreading the legs wide with the pillows resting under the knees. And if you find that perhaps this is too intense, you could either double up your pillows to raise the height, or you just keep the legs a little bit closer together. What's also helpful is to bring your sit bones to the edge of whatever you're sitting on, just to create a slight little tilt in your pelvis, which helps to roll you forward a little bit and come into this beautiful wide-legged pose. So the toes pointing upwards. Lengthen the spine on your next in-breath before bringing the hands onto your knees or onto your thighs, and once again just letting your head fall forwards. Curling protectively over the front of the body, this tender, kind-hearted part of us that in its gentleness is also so strong. We can spend so much time caring for others, looking after others, giving of ourselves to the people we love. Yet how often do we give ourselves that kind of space as well? If you're anything like me, perhaps you have a tendency to be really hard on yourself, to be a little unforgiving at times even. So maybe if you find that tendency does arise in you, using this time right now, this protected time, to soften the hardness, to bring a gentleness to your experience. And then once again, very slowly raising your head up, bending your knees, bringing your feet in close to one another, and coming to lie onto our mat for our almost final position. So coming to lie all the way down flat on your mat, and then shifting over to the right hand side of your mat, and we kind of come into a lying down banana shape. So bring your feet over to the left corner of your mat and stretch your arms out above you and then over to the left top corner of your mat. So you're kind of creating this nice open banana shape, stretching over the right side of the body, opening up. Take a deep breath in, expand those ribs on the right hand side. Open them up, maybe feeling a little bit of stretch in the right hip too. And then shifting the whole body over to the left hand side, releasing the pose, But this time bringing the feet over to the right bottom corner, stretching the arms above the head, and then bringing the hands over to the right top corner, keeping the head nicely nestled between the arms, and stretching open the left side of the body. Maybe stretching open the shoulder this time. Noticing if it's a deep stretch or maybe a shallow, superficial stretch near the surface of the body. And taking in a deep inhale to open up the left side of the ribs. Let it all go. And then coming back to center, so coming back to a nice neutral position with your feet stretched out straight in front of you and your arms alongside your body with perhaps the backs of the hands resting on the floor. Let your feet and your knees fall out away from one another. If you have something like this little eye cushion or like little bean bag, you can bring that over your eyes. Or if you have your towel on hand or maybe a scarf or something like that, you can bring that and rest that over your eyes as well. As we cover our eyes, we provide a little bit of darkness and a little bit of soothing to the eyes, to the forehead. So the thinking brain is in the front of the head, is in the forehead, covering up the eyes, creating a gentle pressure. You might notice that it's quite soothing, it's quite comforting. It's like a weighted blanket for the head. You might find that it brings a sense of calmness to the thoughts, a sense it slows down the busyness of the mind. Otherwise, just gently closing your eyes and bringing your right hand onto your belly, your left hand onto your chest. Breathe into those hands, nice and deep, and feel them sink down as you release your breath. And then really let everything go. So release your hands to the mat. And let's just take one more quiet, still minute. If your eyes are covered, be sure to be gentle with yourself as you slowly peel away the covering, keeping your eyes closed, allowing them to adjust to the change in light. And then rolling over onto your left hand side, returning once again to our fetal position. Perhaps resting the top arm, or perhaps resting the left arm underneath the head. Knees tucked in towards the chest. As we come back to our starting pose from the sequence. But this time rather signifying the start of the next part of our day. When you're ready, slowly pressing into your arms and hands to bring yourself up to a comfortable seated position. Bringing the hands to prayer at your chest. Raising your hands up to your forehead. May your thoughts be gentle and kind. Lowering your hands down to your lips. May your words be gentle and kind. And then bringing your hands to your heart. May you go forth with gentleness and kindness in your heart. Thank you so much for joining me for a beautiful practice and for sharing this wonderful time together. I look forward to seeing you on the mat again next time. Namaste.